Start now.
Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which
For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody, to our Foundation Board meeting here, February 17th. Paul, if you want to go ahead and take roll, certify the quorum approved.
Okay, sure. So we have Joe Mulcahy, George Custis, Nathaniel Monks, Brian McAdon, Uwe Roper, Jim Carter, and Matt Barger on Zoom. So we have a full quorum. And meeting notice was posted in accordance with Florida statutes.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Did everybody have an opportunity to read the minutes from last month? Any comments or changes? Can I get a motion to?
Motion to approve.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, just have a brief president's report today. Not much of an update for all the things that we've done around the community, you know, the pickleball courts and the, you know, all the things I've been reporting that you see in the newsletters, et cetera. But I did want to cover something that Paul sent out publicly, which are, we have all these nice amenities, the restaurant, the pickleball courts, the bocce courts, tennis courts, et cetera. And we've noticed a bit of things that we'd like to call out to the community and pass around, and if people take note of this. First of all, we've had a couple of instances where, in terms of dress code, both pickleball and tennis, I haven't heard anything from a bocce perspective, but there's a dress code that we have out there. Paul sent it out. You know, guys shouldn't be wearing cutoff T-shirts. We just put in these beautiful courts. There's certain shoes that shouldn't be worn on the new pickleball courts with black bottoms that can cause scuffing and stuff like that. So I'd like you to take a look at the rules, adhere to them, and we'd appreciate it. We've got a classy place here, and we want to keep it classy. Secondly, and I've been guilty of this myself, is cleaning your shoes after you play court sports. It's particularly a problem coming in the facility as well as courtside. If you don't clean your shoes, the people at courtside have clay all over the place, and it just a reminder for everybody to clean their shoes when you leave the court, or bring an extra pair of shoes and change your shoes, and this way you won't have the clay get in your car and drag it into your home. And then finally, there's been we continually have to remind people about the the rules with respect to dogs at the community center. We receive emails and messages from some residents that want to ban dogs from the community center. I'm not a fan of that. I like dogs, like animals, but we need to adhere to the rules. The dog should be on a leash. The leash should actually be held in the hand of the people that have the dogs. We've posted signs on the AstroTurf to please keep the dogs off the AstroTurf, so they don't do their business there. And, you know, obviously clean up after, you know, your dogs. I was at the restaurant the other day, and I don't know who did it, but the people at courtside had to clean up a mess that a dog made, you know, out and around where people are eating. So just be courteous, follow the rules. These are things that, you know, I think are all common sense, but I think, you know, we all need to be reminded of them. Just a couple of other items. We had 4 applications for the 2 open board seats. Paul, I think you mentioned that you just mentioned to me that those are going to be going out in the mail.
Yeah, I'm going to cover that in my manager report.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll let you go ahead and cover that. As far as the survey for the long-term planning, we've had 845 results from the survey. Paul's tabulating them, which is a pretty big number. They're sort of just trickling in now. And the deadline for getting the responses for the survey are the end of this month. So, you know, that number could go up slightly by the end of the month. I think that's all I have, Paul.
Okay.
Go ahead and turn it over to you for
Excuse me, Joe.
yes.
I believe there is a bylaw that speaks to dogs, and Paul, several years ago, this issue came up again about dogs. That was even before the restaurant. And look, I'm an animal lover, but there's a place for dogs. And certainly some people are offended when you're eating to have dogs around. So can we look up and reference that bylaw and remind everybody what that rule is so we don't have these problems in the
Yeah, I
future?
mean, I stated when I sent out the email to the members about the rules we have in place and specifically mentioning dogs on leashes, I mentioned that it's in the specific rules that must be, and also referenced that it's also a county ordinance, pet ordinance that you must have, when you're in a public area, your pet must be on the leash at all times, held by the responsible owner. So it's not only our rule, but the county ordinance rule. So again, if you see someone not following the rules, just, and you know who that person is, please alert me and I will speak to that person directly to remind them of the rules. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, Paul, turn it over to you for the manager's report.
Okay, get queued up here for what part of my report's going to be. Okay. So activity has really picked up around the community center with many residents now taking advantage of all the activities and events we have to offer. To give you an idea how busy we are getting, I got the following charts to present to show you some more details on the numbers. Let me pull it up for you. Okay, so the first chart I got up as pickleball. So this chart shows the activity of the pickleball courts for January, where we had 492 unique residents who played, which we equated to 3,080 games or matches played on the courts. There's no data for the previous 3 months, of course, because we were under construction at that time with the new courts. The second chart is tennis. And tennis shows the activity at the courts. In January, we had 314 unique residents who played, equating to about 2,318 games or matches. And for reference, we included the numbers for the previous 3 months, so you can see how much busier it's now getting as season progresses. Over in the gym, there we go. This chart shows the activity for the gym in January, where we had 760 unique residents who used the gym, who equated to about 6,000, just over 6,000 visits. So we obviously have a lot of gym fanatics here among us, who are fanatic about working out several times a week. And again, for reference, we included the numbers for the previous 3 months to show you how busy yours is progressing as we get in busier season.
So Paul, maybe just to step back, I think one of the reasons we're showing this data is as we were having our long-term planning workshops, there was a suggestion from the community that, hey, this data that's presented within individual subcommittees, be nice to know at this level, the level of activity and to keep record of it. So when we need to make a decision, we could easily reference it and it's not a surprise to the community. So I just think it's important to note that, you know, based on the feedback we received, you're trying to bring
Good
that
point.
data forward to everyone.
And for future months, we're still working on the numbers and making it more precise. And so maybe in the future, we're looking to maybe have a chart to show you of these number of uses at what time of day they were pertaining to, so you can show you how busy it is throughout the day. Okay, next is group fitness. This chart shows you our activity fitness classes, which include classes such as spin, bike, yoga, Zumba, and TRX. And in January, we had 100 unique residents participating in these classes, equating to about 1,319 visits for the month. And then again, the previous months, 3 months are included for reference to show you how busy we're getting as we get into the height of the season. And again, for spa, we had 66 unique residents participate in services, totaling 294 services. And the last chart is just a combination of activity for everything else, which includes the card groups that play weekly here, the Bible study groups, the book club, and all other activities and classes and events that Lynn, organizes here. So when you add it all up, we had just over 1,800 or 1,885 people here in the month of January. You divide it by the number of days, it equates to about 63 people a day here in the community center, just in the lobby in these 3 rooms. So you can see how busy we are at this time of year.
Well, what does that bocce number represent? 1,600 people in January did what?
So, and the bocce also includes, so this is the number of bocce, people who play bocce, not unique people, but number of plays. So we figured out, we have 12 teams play a day at the bocce courts for the league play, times 4 days a week. Multiply that, so just over 1,000 plays, plus all the other individual plays and the other bocce activities. So we've had, again, it shows you throughout the week, Monday through Friday, how busy those courts are.
Nice. In the future, will we be able to see the count of how many people are participating?
So we're working on that now. That's it's more drilling down the data and getting those, but we'll get that eventually.
That'd be nice. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
so we can do that. So again, as a reminder, being so busy here at the community center, it also brings the issue of finding parking spaces for the community center, especially in the mornings when we are busiest. So if you can carpool with friends, walk or ride your bike to the community center, help alleviate the parking demand, that would be great. We appreciate it. And if you have to drive to the community center, please make sure you're parking within space lines, so every parking space can be utilized. The first week in March, members will be receiving an annual meeting packet for the annual meeting, which is scheduled this year on March 27th. I'm glad to report that we had, of the 1,914 homes we have in Pelican Marsh, that 1,443 homes signed up for electronic voting. So that equates, so we only had to send out printed stuff about 423. So we're going to save approximately $5,000 in printing and mailing costs this year, just for that mail. So we're still going to work on those last 400 and some odd homers to get them signed up too, and then hopefully eliminate our costs in printing and mailing, but we're on a good start. When you get this annual meeting packet, whether you get it virtually or electronically or in the mail, it's going to have include a limited proxy this year, along with the agenda. And this limited proxy is going to have you to vote on 2 items. One is to vote on rolling over any surplus funds that we may have at the end of the year. And 2, as Joe mentioned, we have an election this year. We have 2 open seats on the board, and we had 4 applicants or candidates put their name in. So you would need to choose 2 of those 4 candidates to take the positions on the board this year. We have scheduled on March 7th a Meet the Candidates Day to give you the opportunity to come in and meet those candidates so you can learn more about them. And we encourage you to do this. It'll also be online on Zoom to watch, because the more you know about the candidates, the better you can be more informed before you vote on each of the candidates you vote for. So look for that date on March 7th, it's a Thursday. Additionally, the bios of the candidates will be on the website. So we'll have that probably up on not Friday, Monday. So go to the website and you can see the bios of each candidate, tell us more about them. Okay. A reminder again, this time of year brings out many residents who are biking, walking, and or jogging throughout the community. So when you're driving, please make sure you're stopping at all stop signs and following the posted speed limit. And additionally, bikers If you're using the bike lanes, please stay in a single file line and stay out of the roadway of the cars. And also, if you're walking and are jogging throughout the community, remember the bike lanes are not to be used for walking or jogging. It's a county ordinance that if you have a sidewalk, you must be on the sidewalk. The bike lanes are for the bikers only, because if you're walking or jogging in the bike lanes, that makes the bikers have to swerve out of the way. And then they come into traffic, so please follow the rules and keep everybody safe this season. And I mentioned in my report last month, but it's worth mentioning again, and I think Joe just mentioned it too, that if you're playing bocce or tennis, please clean your shoes. Every day we're coming in and we just clean the floors, they look nice, and all of a sudden we get this big trail of clay that's coming through. And not only does it take extra staff time to clean up, it also actually puts wear and tear and damage on the floors. And extra cleaning, we have to bring in services to clean it out of the grout, and it costs more money. So again, if you're playing tennis or bocce, just again, clean them really good, or like Joe said, better yet, bring extra pair of shoes. It really helps out. Help us keep our community center looking its best for everybody.
Paul, just a quick question on the shoes. Are we asking people to have different shoes for pickleball and tennis?
So, yes, so the pickleball courts require a certain kind of shoe you should be playing with on the courts. As opposed to, there's a different kind of shoe, tennis shoe you should be wearing playing on clay courts. So,
So people should bring a
Yeah.
change of shoes if they're going from a tennis court to
but
pickleball.
both,
Yes.
well, exactly. Because
Yeah.
again, we've noticed people playing tennis and then deciding playing pickleball, and they try to clay on the pickleball courts. So,
I've made that mistake. I went from playing tennis to pickleball when, a couple of years ago, and there's a whole trail of,
I've
all
done
the
it too.
clay that's inside your shoes falls off on the court.
Yeah, I've done it too. So that's
we've
why
even
I'll
noticed
bring
it being
a second.
tracked into the gym. And people getting on the treadmills and whatever else, and actually like clay gets in the gears, and that causes damage to the equipment too. So anyway, so the best thing is just to please bring an extra pair of shoes. Don't track it in the first place, and that'd be great. Last thing, again, this time of year, we're super busy, but staff and I really appreciate everyone's help and support throughout this time of year as we're so busy, because it really helps us out getting through the season and making things work so well. And as always, we do welcome your comments and suggestions. If you have any suggestions for improvements where needed, let me know about it and we'll look at it to possibly get it done. That's my report.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Any questions or comments?
Paul,
Okay.
did you want to give an update for the long-term planning, just do it items that you had? Did you want to do that now or later on?
Do it at the
In the old
old
business.
Old business.
All right, thanks, Paul. Appreciate the report. Nathaniel, treasurer's report.
let me pull him up one second.
Thank you, Joe. All right, Paul's going to pull up the treasury report. The treasurer's report will just be for January 2025. Be pretty simple, run through it pretty quickly. Our total surplus for January was 47,000, which was 22,000 better than we budgeted. A little bit of that is due to timing, and so that will go away in the future, but we had a really good month in January for income. The operating revenues were essentially on budget. Our expenses were on budget. And the activity centers were way better than budget, $20,000. Food and beverage courtside was down really bad for January. We had a bad January. If you'll remember, it was darn cold in January and you didn't go to courtside. And it shows up right here. And so I think that will equal itself out pretty quickly. We're already having a good February there. I did Google it, and January is the month where Naples gets the most very cold days. I think it's something like 9 on average. So I didn't realize that. So that was a bad January for the court side. Down at the second half of the paper, you see the reserves and capital. We sold 8 houses, collected on 8 houses in January, which is way above budget. We budgeted 4, twice as that. $30,000 over budget for the extra resale fees. And there's actually quite a few more in the hopper. So if anybody told you that houses aren't selling, that's not true inside of Pelican Marsh anyway. All the revenue from the resale fees every year, this board packs it into the reserve account until the reserve account is fully funded for the year. This year, that number will be $302,000. That's our target. And so all resale fees will go into the reserve account till we get to 302. So that's where all the money went. The $60,000 all went into the reserve account. This report will be on the Pelican Marsh website. You can also contact Paul if you have any questions. And then I'll go into the deeper numbers now. Paul pulls up page 2. I will also mention that the Finance Committee recommended and went over some recommendations that were brought to them and their own recommendations, and the Finance Committee and their treasurer has put into effect some more checks and balances than what we had in the past, so that what we're trying to do is set up some policies for perpetuity, so that all future treasurers and staffs will have a little better check and balance and a little more cross-checking, things like the bank statements and the checks that we write and things like that. So glassy-eyed stuff, but we are working behind scenes to make the place better forever. I told my kid on the way to school this morning that I really see no reason why there is not going to be a Pelican Marsh 500 years from now, because what happens every day is the same thing happened yesterday. And so probably hundreds of years from now, it's hard to fathom, but there will probably be a Pelican Marsh here. So if you put your name in wet concrete somewhere. All right, page 2. The available cash, you see all 3 of our accounts. The operating fund is the one where your HOA account, your fund fee goes into, and that's where we pay our day-to-day bills. We started it out January 1 with $481,000 in there. Several of you guys have already paid your HOA fees. We've already received it. And you'll see at the bottom of that column, there's 1.7 million in there now. The replacement account, it started out with 107,000 in it. And then we put in that 60,000 that I mentioned, and a few pennies went here and there, and we have 163,000 in it at the end of it. The capital fund, that's the fund where improvements and upgrades are made to your amenities. Started out at 180,000. We paid some bills for projects that we were already working on, and at the end of the month, we were at 155. That account, I don't see it going up for a long time because all the money coming in is going into the reserve account. But eventually, when the reserve account gets all its 302,000, then resale fees will go into that capital account. Page 3. Fitness over at the gym, the revenues were so year to date, actual 2025 is just January. 84,000 was the income. The expenses was 53,000. You can see that both those numbers are quite a bit better than we budgeted. That was really what created the shiny spot for January. And the surplus was $30,000. In court sports, we were a little better than budget on the revenue, and a tiny bit less than on expenses. So it was actually better than budget by a couple $1,000s. Merchandise, a little bit of that there. Social always gets close to breaking even. That's our goal. Activity centers, we're at 19,000 surplus on the activity centers total if you add them all together. Food and beverage, as I mentioned at the bottom, this is where we spend money. Earlier I told you that how the revenue for the restaurant, that was their business, and here is our side of it. And we spent, it looks like we spent 1144, and we had budgeted about that same amount. We really don't spend much on courtside, and we didn't budget much to be spent at this time of year. Page 4. This is the home sales chart. 9 homes sold. One of them was someone that lived in Pelican Marsh already, so they didn't have to pay the fee again. 8 fees were collected. And you can see that our goal was to get to 65 this year. And then you can see how we moved the money around as I already explained to you. That's the whole treasurer's report. It was a good month in January. Thank you.
Any questions before we move on? Okay, thank you very much, Nathaniel. We'll move on to item number 9, the long-range planning update. Paul, I'll either turn it over to you and or Brian to cover this.
Okay. You want to start out, Brian, or?
Oh, you have a nice summary here, Paul, if you just
Okay.
want to go through the
Well,
items.
When we, back on, I think it was, January 7th, we had a long-term planning workshop where we invited members to come in and talk about various ideas they thought might be helpful or useful to to improve or expand the amenities here at Pelican Marsh. And so we came out of that workshop with 20 or so ideas to do. And we sent those, again, that's part of the survey now that members are, putting their input on. But during that meeting, the board said, 10 of those items are cost very little money, if not at all. Let's just do it. Let's just get a plan to get it done. So we started working on those 10 items. So I got an update on where those items are. So one was talking about the spin bikes. At the time, the spin bikes were out on the back patio next to bocce courts along that narrow patio area that were kind of interfering with the bocce play, and it was kind of not working out well. So we talked about moving the bikes inside the community center, but we found in season, we're just so busy with all activities and setting up rooms that the bikes became cumbersome moving them back and forth. So we decided, well, let's just move the bikes under the pergola, which was recently covered, that has the screens, to kind of put them away from the bocce courts. And so that's where they're at today. And so far it seems to be working out pretty well, where it doesn't really interfere with the bocce play, and the spin bike players like it over there. And the screens can come down when it's colder or windy to kind of, make the climate controlled area better. So far it's working out well.
Did you get some feedback from the bocce people? Do they like it?
Yeah, so I think the bocce is, well, typically spin bike is in the mornings early, so it's not one bocce play, but sometimes we had early people in the mornings practicing bocce. So now it's kind of separated.
But the bikes were sitting there in front of the doors.
Exactly. So now it's kind of separated apart. So they have their own little individual space, and it's working out better. So hopefully we can keep it going like that. Last month, the board approved, one of the recommendations was on the colder days, like in January, at the bar, it's cold, so let's do something about heating. So the board approved last month to install electric heaters in the bar, so we can get that place warmer on the colder days. So I started doing research on the various space heaters out there. You'll see a lot of these space heaters out. Mercado has a lot of them, more. They're mounted on the ceiling and they radiate down to heat the space. The problem is our ceilings are so high in the bar that the largest ones I can find that with the maximum range for height to be effective is 14 feet. Well, our ceilings start at 16 feet. So we're already outside that range. So we're going to have to do some more research, possibly how to make this work, because to buy the heaters and put them up above the maximum range and then not be effective and spend all that money is not really worth it. So we're going to go take a step back and table this issue for a while and do some research. Luckily, the weather's turned nice, and hopefully it'll stay nice for a while so we can have time to really research this heating issue. So I'll bring up more updates
electric
later.
or gas?
Pardon me?
Are those electric or gas?
Electric heating.
Yeah.
Another one was just do it items was to obviously with these all these ideas, we should have a committee put together to help us look at these ideas and propose what's best moving forward. So we decided to put a long-range planning committee together. So we sent out an email to all the residents trying to recruit who'd like to serve on this long-range planning committee. We had 14 people put their name in to possibly serve. We had those applications now. The board just now got them, and we're going through the applications and taking the next steps to whittle it down to pick the right, 5 members of that group to form this committee. So we're working on that today. Hopefully that committee forms soon so they can start moving forward with, because once the survey results come in, to take that data and start working on it. One was about the use of our amenities. How busy are we? So let's do a monthly report. So as today, as you saw, we did a monthly report to show you how busy we are at the community center. And we're taking in future months, we'll have those data even more refined with some graphs to be a little more detailed about how busy we are getting in the time of year with the amenities. It was also talked about, we need to look at increasing the level of authorization for the board to spend on capital funds. Right now, the limit's $250,000 the board can spend without getting approval from membership. But it was suggested that because of the cost of inflation, that $250,000 doesn't get you much these days. And perhaps the board should be given more authority to spend more money. So we're looking at now that recommendation. Ultimately, if it is decided to go forward with that recommendation, that still has to get board approval. I mean, excuse me, resident approval, because it's in the documents, that authority for spending. So if you want to ask membership to increase that amount, the members have to approve that to increase that amount.
For clarification, Paul, what we're thinking about doing is maybe linking it to inflation, not just coming up with another number, right?
Correct. Has some rhyme behind the reason.
Because that number is from when, like 2008 or something?
Yes,
or-
yeah, if you did the backwards inflation, what $250,000 back then now would be like 150 now or something. So it's the board's authority is actually going down every year.
No, wrong way. What would the number be?
That's wrong.
He means that the, in 2008 dollars would be 150.
Yeah.
He means that it would actually go up to about 400. Yeah.
Okay, that's, oh, thanks, Brian.
Dollars are not worth near as much as dollars from the past.
So are we looking to send it out to the community at 400?
The board does not have any authorization more than they've ever had. The authorization in real dollars is actually goes down each year because of inflation.
Well, the good part is it's going to go out to the community for a vote. So
Yeah.
Okay. 400 seems like a realistic number
But-
for what we're dealing with, but
Another idea was brought up about some kind of short-term sitting and or access to the pickleball courts. On the other side, we have courts 4, 5, and 6 that you had to walk all the way around next to Pelican Marsh Boulevard, and there's really no pathway. We have a gate to get into the pickleball courts, but no pathway. So I am looking at getting with the staff here with some material we have to create a stable temporary pathway to make it easy for members to access the courts from that point, making it safe. And additionally, just down the road for this long-term planning, I've asked our contractors, US Tennis, who built the tennis courts, to give us a proposal to actually construct a patio back there where we could now long-term put seating back there. So we're waiting on that.
Paul, for the next meeting, could you possibly provide what you're exactly talking about so a lot of the people in the
Can't
community?
hear you,
Hold on,
Matt. You're
hold
going to
on.
have to speed up.
Hold on, Matt. We can't hear you.
Keep talking, Matt.
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Matt.
so Paul, for the next meeting, could you provide like a plan that talks about exactly what we were proposing?
Yes, I can.
Okay, yeah, but because I think those are both great ideas, but I think the community should know a little bit more about that.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you so much.
Seven.
7. So we also talked about engaging with a designer, a master planner, a land planner, to help us work on these long-range planning ideas. So to avoid piecemealing the improvements. So having a plan of action, so we're not doing something here that's going to interfere with something future wise. So that's going to be part of the long-term range planning along probably when we get the long-term planning committee together to work with this planner.
Yeah, not only that, we want it to look good, I think, is another aspect of that. Not just interfering and conflicting.
We
but
wanted to make it look like it was meant to be there, not like
Right.
somebody just piecemealed it together, you
Make it
know.
look as good as we can make it look.
Exactly.
I
Like
think
it
the
was-
discussion at the meeting last time was we're having more and more hardscape, we're having more and more pavers and less grass because we're using those areas for this and that.
Right.
And we just want it to look good, right? So,
Have we
No.
engaged anyone at this point or?
I do have 2 land planners that have been recommended to me that I've already reached out to, so and I'm gonna find a couple more so we can choose the best one for us.
And they're going to submit a preliminary
Well,
vision or?
I want them to first come out and look at the facility to get an idea so they know what to submit to us. So,
So do we have a timeline on that, Paul, to be done by April, May, some point where the board gets that input?
once they come out, I will ask them how long it typically takes to put something together. But we're also going to want to know the information from the survey, what members are really interested in, so we concentrate on the right things. So you can incorporate that into the plan.
So we have to have the survey first, so we know what we're
Right.
gonna do.
Right.
And then
Well,
gotta prioritize those things and then get somebody to come in and look at what we're gonna do to actually execute on a plan.
But I would definitely say, Jim, that probably mid to late April, at the very latest, we should have something really together.
That makes sense.
yeah, because we have parts of it. I mean, we've got multiple inputs coming in, but the bottom line is we still need to get that input to see how the pieces might fit into it.
Right,
So,
correct.
So, ultimately, I submitted a plan. I forget when it was. It was 2023. I think it was May. And I think that should be included in the total overall plan that we're talking about. Is anybody on the board against that?
In what context, Matt? Are you talking about long-term planning? You're talking about the landscaping study? What context?
Long-term- Brian, it's long-term planning and it's the actually overall scheme of the 5.45 acres that we have.
Yeah, no, I think that makes perfect sense, Matt, to be part of the long-term planning, hand over that institutional knowledge to that group and make it a foundation of, what they ultimately recommend. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Next one, number 8, was to review the bike paths with the CDD to see if we can improve the bike paths to make them more safer, maybe wider. So I think is it Uwe or George is working with the CDD to see about possibly in the future what can be done. So those talks are ongoing.
Right, I've been talking with Bob Giannetti, who's on the, as we know, on the CDD board. And there may be some undeveloped property that we can use in a way that is still undeveloped in that nature walk, hiking, biking trails, so et cetera. I don't know, Bob, if you have anything new to add to what we talked about or.
Good afternoon. I checked with CDD, with Neil Doral about the preserve area. And we can actually use that for recreation. So if we wanted to put something in there, we obviously have to look to see if we can and how much it would cost. But if they wanted to put in a bike trail, walking trail, anything like that, they could. Patrick brought that up to my attention in terms of that an idea of maybe something that we could build in there. I already talked to Patrick about that and he hasn't had a chance yet to develop any concept out, but that is available to use for recreational purposes.
See, I think that fits in nicely with long-term planning. I think that was one of the 20 recommendations from a long-term planning perspective. I think this one specifically was just looking like at Pelican Marsh Boulevard,
Right. I can
looking
stand
at
that.
safety issues.
It morphed into.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't know. Separately, you guys can just have discussions about, is there some kind of safety things we can do to either increase the width of the bike lanes or put up some kind of, rubberized, I think Paige has suggested some kind of rubberized barriers.
The issue that we have with the streets right now is the curbing and all the sewers. So that is prohibitive because I mean, you're talking money that you
The
would.
gutter, those concrete gutters.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
and they
mean,
are.
you're talking about, widening the roads and putting a new drainage. I mean, that's,
That's
And
what,
Bob, you and I went down this path. It's not going to be anything we could do because it's county.
but we're still looking into different options.
Bob, before you I have a question.
Sure.
I have seen on some roads, a little barrier that was simply made out of kind of a reflector plastic that a car could easily run over and would pop back up. And I was wondering if the bike lane, instead of having little markings as a bike lane, if it had a little, something that stood up that was street legal, would something like that make it more safe? Because it's so much obvious that you're wandering off into the bike lane with your car.
The concern I would have there, I've seen people riding their bikes. And yes, they try to stay in that little bike lane. If somebody touches one of those things, they could fall over.
Good point.
I'm more concerned about the safety of the person that's on the bike. Them feeling like, okay, it's already tight enough. Now I've got to avoid this. And just somebody being a little
Makes sense.
unsure might cause us more problem than it's
Like
worth.
Thank you.
I bike every day and I don't perceive a huge problem.
Right.
On Pelican Marsh Boulevard, sometimes in the mornings around certain times, right around 8, we get a lot of traffic there. So if I'm going to Pennis right at 8, quite often there's contractors coming in, there's quite a bit of traffic. I honestly don't perceive a huge problem. Are there some other roads that have been identified where there is a problem?
Not that we have identified yet, but we're going to keep looking and to see what we can do, or if there's different areas that we can try to do something, but we'll still pursue that.
I ride a lot too. The only thing I noticed, that the guys do a great job maintaining, you know, when the roots get
Yep.
heave the concrete gutters or the pavement, they get fixed. As long as we keep
Yeah.
that up, we're good, because there have been times when my tires caught that little lip of the gutter or a bump or something that
We'll
could
keep up on
throw
that.
some people, but they're doing a great job. And if they keep it up, I think we're in good shape.
Sure. While I have you here, Bob, I got a question. I noticed that the landscapers have taken out all grass in different parts all along the boulevard. What are they doing? Gonna put new sod there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I've just
Right,
never
just
seen,
replacing.
20 years I've been here, I've never seen that done. Is that something we do?
They did it in our neighborhood too. There was apparently a big
Is there
fungus,
Bug,
fungus thing
fungus
that
problem?
happened
Okay.
because of the
Just as
rain.
it goes bad, just replace it.
just replace it, okay.
And Bob, it seems like it's sprinkler heads as well.
I'm sorry about sprinkler heads.
Yeah, it just seemed like when I was going down Pelican Marsh Boulevard the other day, it seemed like they're replacing a couple sprinkler heads as well.
I think there's over 20,000 of them, and and I know that people would say, well, you know, this one's pointing the wrong way or whatever. I agree. It just takes a long time for
20,000.
20,000 of these things. But
I
we're
got hit
trying.
by
We'll do
one
the
on my
best we
bike the
can.
other day, by the way.
Did you send a complaint to the CD?
No, it felt pretty good. It was a warm day.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, so number 9 on our list of 10 just do it items was possibly consolidate the storage sheds that we have by the tennis courts on the west side of the courts. So what we're going to do is we have 3 storage sheds out there. And this summer, when we're slower, I'm going to bring in a dumpster to put along the side of the sheds. I'm going to go through all the sheds. We have a lot of stuff in there that's been in there for years we don't use anymore. And we're just going to really go through and eliminate anything that's not needed anymore and reorganize those sheds for better utilization and efficiency. And then we'll determine at that point if we can consolidate maybe down to 2 sheds. So that's the plan for this summer. And lastly, on the list, number 10 was improve the security cameras around the campus. And at the board meeting last month, the board authorized money to spend to add extra cameras. And so since then, I've had signed the agreement to do that, and it's already on order. And hopefully by the end of this month or early next month, we'll have those cameras in place. And so then when we're all said and done, we'll have cameras covering all the courts, the parking lot, the bocce courts, and the courtyard area, the court sides. And additionally was inside in the lobby area too. So, hopefully that'll be helpful moving forward for safety and security.
I want to mention just one more item. It's not a quick action item, but it just because it relates to this. Yesterday at the CDD meeting, on the CDD agenda was the gate at Mercado, which was one of the 20 items. Not one of your 10, but it was one of the other 10.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of a long-term item, not a quick do item. And CDD had it on the agenda. Happened to attend the meeting, and there was quite a bit of interest from residents on that, concern about traffic, parking, that kind of thing. And so I gave a little bit of background at that meeting, and I see some of those folks are here today. We don't actually have that item on the agenda here today. It's not one of the 10 fast ones. It's one of the 10 slow ones.
20.
One of the 20 long-term planning ideas.
Right, one of the 20 long-term planning ideas, but not the ones we're making quick action on. So just so you know, that is on the long term, and it fits in with establishing a long-term committee, which we'll be doing shortly. As Paul indicated, with candidates, we'll set up a committee. We're hiring a planner, and somewhere in that process, we will have more discussion on that gate. But unfortunately, it wasn't on the agenda here today. Just for those folks that showed up for that reason.
Everyone or just within the committee?
So have more discussion with.
That there will be more discussion, and I'm asking, is that just within the committee or?
So first we'll get the results of the survey and see if it's anything that the community is even interested in pursuing. Then it would go to the long-term planning committee, say, okay, what would be involved in doing this? Is this something that we want to bring forward to the entire community to see if it's under 250,000, if the board wants to do, or if it's over 250, if the community needs to vote on. So it's very early in the process in terms of even understanding if this is something the community wants us to do. Does that answer your question? Okay.
I think the answer is fairly.
Can you come to the
clear.
mic, please, if you
Oh,
have comments?
My name is Doug Johnson. I live in Sweet Bay. This is an item of particular interest to the people who live in Sweet Bay because we confronted this issue at the time that they were building Mercado. And Bob McGran and I were representatives to the developer there, representing Pelican Marsh. And there were a number of problems that were not easily resolved with opening a pedestrian gate. First of all, it would have to be sited in the area of Sweet Bay. There was a concern about parking. There was a concern about access control, concern about pollution. There was a concern. What were the other concerns, Bob? There were a bunch of them at that time.
Mostly it was parking.
Yeah, concern about what does the parking there do to the appearance of the neighborhood? What does it do about property value? So when I said I think the answer is fairly apparent, there are a lot of people in 34109 that would think that's a terrific idea. In this case, I'm suggesting that maybe the minority position, which will undoubtedly turn out to be Sweet Bay, should be carefully examined because we think that bears on the value of our property, the access to our property, our security particularly. Now I know we don't profess to have security here. We have access control. Nevertheless, we think that provides an entry for, I don't know. And
Yeah, I think all valid points, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely have to be,
Yeah.
like I said, I don't even know if the community as a whole is
Yeah.
even behind it.
What got my attention was the comment that we would do a survey community-wide. And I think the outcome of that is apparent. You know, there are a lot of people who say, geez, that's a terrific idea, you know. And if I lived in 34109, I'd probably say that's a terrific idea, but I'm just saying, please bear in mind that the minority position is a great stake in this. Okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me give just a little insight on this. When the Luggert family owned that corner, we were going to buy the option when I worked for Simon Property Group, and I built Coconut Point. You guys all know that. And one of the things that everybody wanted to talk about was access into Pelican Marsh. And I was one of the very first people to say no, ever, because it made no sense. It made no sense to have access into our community through that way. Along the way, somebody granted a pathway for pedestrian access, which I completely appreciate. And, you know, you've got to go through a little bit of a process. But there is no reason whatsoever that we should go any farther than what is there today. And with that, I'm going to just say, there's no reason for us to even go further. It should just be a dead issue at this point.
Matt, I agree with you. The problem is, this is a CDD prerogative. This is not the foundation. I don't think legally we could spend a dime on creating an access into Mikado.
Jim, you and I you were president at the time when we went through this drill.
Why we need to discuss this.
Yeah, I
now.
think it's
I mean,
little-
it's
little
a
so-
concept that someone suggested. Let's trust the process. Let's see the results of the survey. Let's let the long-term planning committee do their job.
Yeah,
And
I
if we have to have a community-wide discussion on it, this gentleman brought up very valid points. We'll address it at that time.
Yeah,
Let's not-
you know, we could do this with everything that's out
Yeah.
there right now, and it's really premature to have that discussion.
Well,
But I
with all due respect, Joe,
Joe and Brian, I appreciate it.
don't have
Yeah.
a problem with it. But if you get outside of what we're charged with as a foundation and the properties that we own, and you got to look at the CDD and what they own and what they manage, that's in their bailiwick. If they can do it and we can cooperate and work with them by providing the data that shows there's a need, that's one thing. But I think you're on a slippery slope if you're going to start putting things into long-range planning that are outside of what we do. So
I agree, Jim. It's like out of our purview. It should be eliminated.
Looking at bike paths.
BDD wants to deal with it, let
Okay.
them deal with it.
It's just a concept.
Can I suggest the difference is we were looking for an abatement in anxiety in Sweet Bay. It's an issue that really resonates with us. Bike paths, that's a community-wide, but
But the
anyway,
concept of using CDs, interfering with CDD actions or requiring CDD approval to several of the concepts require that. And right now they're just concepts.
But you know what? Let's not just send them down a rat hole just because somebody brought up the idea. It makes no sense because we don't touch that as the foundation, right?
Matt, could we defer this? Because it wasn't on the agenda. My point was simply, I wanted to acknowledge that some residents had come up to the meeting today for an item that's actually not on the agenda. And I just wanted to make the point that it's not on the agenda. There will be time to discuss that item. We
Fair
appreciate.
enough, Uwe, fair enough. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I completely agree with
there's
you.
going to be plenty of time for us to discuss this, and today's not the day.
Right, that's what I.
And I,
You're
and I,
right on.
and I,
thank you.
and
Thank
I
you
don't
for the
think,
opportunity.
and I don't
Valid
think any
points.
of us have an agenda to go down that path without a lot of open discussion and input by people that are impacted by this.
Thanks.
No worries. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Looking at all of these items, could you look at them in the point of view for the next 10 items of what helps us as opposed to what helps somebody else? The problem that you're discussing right there doesn't help us, it helps Mercado. Okay?
Yeah, I would disagree, but as we said, it's not worth discussing at this point.
Yeah, we've all agreed.
By the way,
I'm sorry?
are they gonna have good meetings for the?
Yes. Yeah,
And post.
All the meetings open.
yeah.
Just like the workshop is open, Jerry. It's a discussion for the community.
I think we've been very open and transparent and collaborative with the community since, the inception of this board. I don't think there's anything that we're hiding from anybody or we have a particular agenda. Wasn't my idea, but it was here at the workshop and we didn't, as a board, say, oh, that's a stupid idea, let's don't put it on the list, or that's not within our purview. We included everything so that people would have some input and have visibility into everything that we did. So that's the way we've run the board, and we're going to continue to run the board at least as long as we're all on the board. So, all right.
There's just one more hour of happy hour, guys. Let's move forward.
Right.
Yeah. Paul, I just want to say thanks to Paul for number one, putting together this update. It was very thorough, Paul, and I know you've, thank you and your staff for moving forward on these Just Do It items and giving us an update today.
Thank you. Just by the way, I did get a text from my staff in the office. I did say something incorrectly on my report about the meet the candidates date. It's on March 6th, not 7th. So please note that. We'll send an email out to let you know, but it's March 6th, Thursday.
Okay. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
So
All right, that's it for 9.1. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Uwe with respect to 9.2, proposal to increase the court sports clinic rates from $20 to $25.
So as the tennis liaison, there are two items out there that are old item issues. This is one of them. There was another one which is not on the agenda today, but I'll just mention it just to make sure I just want to let you know we haven't forgotten about it. This item is on clinic fees. There was another discussion on raising the guest fee. The guest fee item we're not ready to discuss today. I'm going to ask to put it on the next agenda. The reason the guest fee item is not on the agenda because I decided to combine it with another item, which was to reduce local resident guest fees. Not local residents, sorry, house guest resident fees. That discussion got a little bit involved. I didn't get it done. That's why that second item isn't on here today, so that's my fault. But on the clinic fee, we previously had a meeting. It was discussed. We had consultation on it. There was comments from the board. There was comments from the community. See Rich sitting in the aisle there. Rich is the chair of the TAC committee. One of Rich's comments was that the increase was a big increase from 20 to 25. It seemed like a large increase proportionally. And that was in a discussion where at the same day we had that meeting, we raised the lesson fee from 90 to 100. So yes, it did seem like a big increase. For that reason, I think we had a couple of board comments at that meeting as well. It got deferred. So here we are. It's back on the agenda. So let me tell you where we went with this item. The comments I got was this three types of comments I got on this item. One of them is court use priority. Some people were commenting, well, lessons interfere with and clinics interfere with other uses of the courts. Yes, they do. After having talked to people, I've also had people say, well, but we do need lessons. So at the moment, we reserve one lesson court for tennis. We reserve one lesson. We don't reserve. We make one tennis court available for lessons. We make one pickleball court available for lessons. There's also a high demand for this. So from the perspective of, do lessons interfere with other uses? Yes, they do. We have a limited number of courts. But on that particular aspect, we do need lessons. Everybody offers lessons, so we need to offer lessons. Should we offer more lessons? I don't think there's a need to offer any more than we do, but we also can't offer much less than we do. So we now have two pros at the moment that offering both tennis and pickleball. So from that perspective, yes, it is one of the many conflicting uses we have, just like league play is with social play and so on. But it's a necessary item. The other aspect that got raised with me was the cost to users. Of course, when we raised from 20 to 25, there's a direct impact on people using clinics. I sign up for clinics. I actually sign up for a lot of lessons as well. I'm just a bad tennis player that continuously needs improvement. But what we did do with that is we ran a comparison. We looked at 15 communities. In those 15 communities, the prices ranged from 20 to 35 per lesson. So the proposal here is to raise it from 20 to 25. So out of those 15 communities we looked at, we were at the low end with our 20. So from a community comparison perspective and the cost to users, going from 20 to 25 doesn't seem unreasonable, in my opinion. The third aspect was revenue to the foundation. Of course, we collect fees. We collect fees for lessons. We collect fees for clinics. Those fees benefit our budgets. So what we actually use that money for is direct compensation of the pros, as many communities do. So it's a direct compensation factor. So when we build the revenue from the clinics and the lesson fees into our budget, it helps us offset money we would otherwise have to put out from the budget. So by increasing the lesson fee, it actually helps our budget. It doesn't come directly back to the foundation because we use it to pay the pros with. It's part of our compensation discussion, but it actually helps us. And so on those three aspects, after looking at the court use conflicts and priority, looking at the cost to users, which I thought it's a reasonable increase, looking at other communities, And then looking at the revenue benefit back to the foundation, it's my recommendation that we go ahead with that $20 to $25 increase. And that's the motion I'm going to make. I'm happy to open it up to the board.
Any other motion? Before we get to that, I just wanted to see if any other board members had any comments about this before we vote.
No, I agree. I agree with you. Let's do it.
Yeah, I originally, when this was raised and there was comments by the board and the residents, it seemed like a big jump. But then as I started to reflect on it and had more communications with the pros and other residents, this $20 has been there for a long time, and we probably could have increased it to 2250 at some point. And so it seems like a big jump, but it's been a long time coming. And we also looked at all the market data and it made sense. So those are my comments. We don't have any other comments by the board. Any questions or comments by the community? Yes.
Hi, Cindy Villarosa. I'm the chair of the pickleball committee, 100% in favor of this. I mean, you go to courtside, you buy a glass of wine, it's $11. So, I mean, 2025 is not changing anything. But what I did wanted to speak about, and that's really what I was here today, is the number of guests who are here at night. And I do think that we are not capturing. We're always looking at the numbers. We're always looking to see who's using the facilities, whether it's tennis or pickleball. And I was here a few nights this week. I bet you there were 90% of the people I didn't know. And because I think we have so many guests this time of year, we're not capturing those. And that's a revenue issue, but it's also accounting. We really need to know who are using our facilities. And I've seen this. I mean, I've seen.
What time are you talking about? Is it like
6 o'clock, 7 o'clock? I think between, especially after dinner, people come with their families and all of a sudden they're playing pickleball. And
is that pickleball or tennis more?
Well, I've seen mostly pickleball because I play pickleball. I mean, so I'm not pointing the finger to one, but I have seen, people come up and they're playing tennis. They come up themselves and their kids are throwing the ball and they're doing things. So they're using this more as a playground sometimes. And I'm thrilled. Let me just say this. You're using our facilities. It's great. This is what we want. But I think that we need to capture it. I think we need to possibly, and I've spoken to Johan about this, and maybe next year we do this, have somebody from the pro shop here at night, even just till 8 o'clock, because they can walk around. I went to a group of women playing. I did not know who they were. I've seen them a few times. It's a resident here at Pelican Marsh, but she brings her 3 friends. And she said, oh, I come 2 or 3 nights a week. Well, 2 or 3 nights a week, we're paying for this.
Yeah.
Right.
So I do think that possibly we look at this going forward, but I do think maybe having a house fee, if I have my grandson here, I want to go out and hit with him, but I just want to know it's affordable also.
I'm not going to try to propose this as an item, and maybe everybody's going to throw tomatoes at me, but we kind of had this issue in Ariel with our pool, where people were coming into the pool, and what they did, I don't know if I necessarily agree, because I didn't think it was that big of a problem, but if this is becoming a problem, we actually turned the gates and you had to have a fob in order to get in the gates. I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea, what it would cost. I don't think that people are going to be climbing a 10-foot fence to get in.
No.
But it's just maybe is something that if we'll continue to look at this, maybe I don't know that it makes sense for us to hire part-time staff to be here till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. But I mean, these are things that we probably have to think about.
But
if this is that big of a problem.
It actually really fits with that item that didn't make it on the agenda today, which is raising the guest fee. Because there's been an active discussion about guest fees, and one aspect of Cindy is actually collecting the guest fee. Now the pros are telling me we're doing a better job of collecting guest fees than maybe we did in the past. But that is part of the discussions, making sure when we have guest fees, not only just raising it, which is what TAC had recommended, but making sure that we're actually collecting it.
And I think getting the count, I think that's the other thing. How many people are here? This has been a big issue this past year, making sure everybody that signs up. So if you sign up for a tennis court and you're only one person, what's the chances that you're playing by one?
It might even be something as simple as making sure we put some signage at the gates to the courts.
There's some things, but I just think
it's a good point. Well Point well taken. Thank you.
Okay, good.
I'd
Thank you.
I'd like to confirm what Cindy said. Several times I've come up recently in the evening and the pickleball courts will be totally full of people that I've never seen before, and even in a demographic I don't normally see. And I wonder if gradually the word's gotten out, we don't collect visitors fees after 5. And
Say, hey, there's a
it
great
feels
new,
that
there's a
way.
great new place over in Pelican Marsh. Let's go play over there.
I believe we should at least put up signage that everyone playing is required to be on court reserve or something like that.
Yeah.
And trespassing will be enforced or something, because if we looked on court reserve and could see that someone brought several visitors, we could call them the next day and say, do you have 3 visitor fees or something? And maybe on occasion, someone could view the footage from the previous night to see if that knows the players, to see if they're members or not.
So back to the topic of clinics.
Yes.
25.
We have a motion.
Yeah.
Any other
We kind of
comments?
went down a rabbit hole, but I think
This will come back up next time when we have the discussion on
Yeah,
$15.
but I think if we're done with the discussion on that, let's call a vote.
I motion
Yeah,
to change the guest fee from 20 to 20, sorry,
Seconded.
to change the clinic fee from 20 to 25.
Do we have a second?
Seconded. So
second.
Favor?
Aye.
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 I think that was unanimous. Okay, thank you. Then we have new business. We have a report from the Design and Review Committee. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items that were presented to the board. These were just sort of an overview. Installation of windows and sliding glass doors. The second one was request to install a generator, which will be screened from a view of the landscaping. We had another one that was a request for paint in the exterior. Another one that was request for paint the exterior, and the final one is submitted a request to replace the roof. All of these were under the guidelines, and each one of those were approved and presented to the board. So I just want to ask, are we going to get a motion to approve this?
To approve.
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Back to the agenda. I think that's it for everything on the agenda. Any final board comments? Resident comments?
I think if Nate's correct, there's now only 30 minutes of happy hour.
yeah.
Any, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
No.
Yes.